Hello everybody, Mike, aka The Magico13, here with episode 27 of the Out of This World series. As you can see, we still have about 5 days left on this tech, but I have two things in the VAB list, each called 4320 LFO. This alarm isn't actually for anything, and we don't have any alarms coming up. These are basically just fuel depots that hold 4,320 liquid fuel and the appropriate amount of oxidizer. And the reason we are sending these up is because, well, we will need to refuel something very, very soon. So first off, I'm going to rename this to Fuel Station 0 or something along those lines. I can't quite recall. If you haven't noticed, I am doing this post-commentary. I did not get a chance to do live commentary with this episode, and honestly, it probably wouldn't have been very good live commentary because I recorded for something like 2.5 hours to get a 22-minute episode. So yeah, there's a lot to look forward to in this episode, and apparently a really long loading screen that I didn't cut out. So that's how long my loading screens are. So this is Refuel Station 0. This is 55 tons almost shoved on top of a 50-ton launcher. So it's not quite capable of getting it into orbit unless I fly it super efficiently, which with this one I don't. The fuel depot itself, you can see, is just one of the large tanks with 8 of the rather large 1.25 meter tanks. But I'm not going to make you watch that, so we're going to skip to where I disconnect. We just need to circularize. We are actually circularized now. Joys of post-commentary is I can cut a lot of that stuff. So we are just putting this in a 75 by 75 kilometer orbit, and then putting it in the normal direction. There's some little solar panels that need to be able to see the sun. So if I put it in the normal, then those will get sunlight. So we are launching a second one now. This is the second one that you saw on the build list, and same thing. This one I was more efficient with, and I actually had fuel left over when I dropped that. And you can see that has a periapsis of 35 kilometers, so that will in fact be destroyed. Wow, okay, these cuts are very fast, and I kind of forgot. So this is the ALCOR capsule, and this is the Joolian 4 mission, and this is me messing up the launch, and you'll notice our heading is kind of different from our velocity vector, and now we're spinning. So this is actually the Jool 4 ship. You can kind of see it in the darkness there. It's currently upside down, and I'm just going to load from quick save because there's not quite enough fuel to get into orbit. It can almost make it into orbit on its own, but I had to throw some SRBs down underneath so that it would work. We are just finishing up our circularization here and docking to Refuel Station 0. The Refuel Station 1 is still going to be hanging out in orbit in case we need to refuel at some later point. But, so you can see this is perfectly designed for this. The fuel tanks are essentially identical. There is one fuel tank on the refuel station for each fuel tank on the Jool 4 mission. So this whole thing is essentially an all-in-one lander and transmooner, I suppose, ship, which is now fully refueled after some cuts. Yeah, so that's got 4 people eventually is what I'm going to put in here. Currently it's only got Tomfred Kerman. 2 will be in the research lab at all times. 2 will be in the ALCOR capsule. The 2 in the capsule will be the pilots, obviously. The 2 in the lab is so that we can reset all of the mystery goo and all that. And then this thing is just going to deorbit because we don't really need it up here anymore. It's got nothing in terms of fuel. and so that will crash and we won't really worry about it. This, however, needs to go to the science station because we need to pick up our crew, because Tomfred Kerman is certainly not going by himself to all of the Joolian moons. That would be unfortunate, because he couldn't reset any of the science things. So it would be kind of a waste. So yeah, we just had to raise our apoapsis so that we could get near here. After a couple orbits, we got a pretty close encounter. This is all sped up, I think, 4 times, and is basically just getting in close. Once we get to, I think, 600 or 500 meters, I'm just going to start transferring people. I don't want to worry about docking. It took me a while to dock this the first time. So this is using just a skipper engine as the main engine. I was considering using the large service propulsion engine thing that KW Rocketry has, which has an ISP of something like 410. With that, we, I think, got over 4 kilometers per second of delta V, but the only issue is the thrust-to-weight ratio was so low that we would not be able to take off from Lathe. With this, we will actually have a thrust-to-weight ratio above 1 on Lathe, and hopefully we have enough fuel to get off the surface and actually make it into orbit. I haven't actually tested that. I also don't know if this will survive reentry. One of the issues that happened with testing of other things was that the ship would just come apart because of the new aerodynamic failure model that Ferram Aerospace has. And I never actually tested this one in Lathe's atmosphere, so I don't know what's going to happen. So Tomfred is not going to be a pilot. He's going to be in here, but this is apparently a full module. That is news to me because I had tons of issues assigning crew to this, which is supposedly an issue with Kerbal construction time. I don't know why it was happening, but for whatever reason I could not select the crew that would go in there. So I'm going to send Bobald Kerman over to the station, keep Bob Kerman in the science module. Ethan and Maxim, you two are going to be the pilots, and you two will be landing on every one of the bodies, getting out, walking around. Bob and Tomfred, I might have them get out and walk around, but at the very least, you two will be. And then Tomfred just needs to get in here, and then we have our 4 crew. And that could have probably been an episode by itself, had I not cut out a bunch of stuff. But luckily, we are actually going to poll this episode. So the start of the Jool 4 mission, the reason it's 4, by the way, is because I'm not including Kerbin. With Kerbin, it's 5. Yeah, so the very first thing we're doing is we're going to poll the furthermost moon and the one with the lowest gravity. If you use the default Alternis, BOP is also around Jool, meaning it has 6 total moons. However, in this setup, BOP is a moonlet of Kerbin, which you would know if you've watched other episodes, specifically the ones where I go to BOP. So I am doing this in 2 parts. There's the burn out of the sphere of influence of Kerbin, which we have already done, I do believe. And then there is the plane change burn in order to get a nice plane change to encounter pole. We are currently adjusting that second one so that we have a nice, almost equatorial orbit around pole. I don't want quite equatorial because I'm going to be doing Kethane scanning and a little bit of mapping. And the SOI keeps doing weird things, and you'll notice it now has just messed up our orbit pretty substantially. But it gets better. This is how it gets better. Now we are just randomly on a collision course with Kerbin because we continuously get brought into its SOI. So load the quick load, load the quick save, I suppose. And this actually happens a couple times. Then there's this orbit that happens. which then suddenly turns into a Jool escape orbit. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of messed up. Let's try this again, but keep the time warp low. And this time it actually works perfectly fine. Well, we do get that little issue, but that kind of disappears. Keep the time warp kind of low, and it all works out fine. All in all, the transfer to pole was fairly low. I think it only took, it took about 1 kilometer per second of delta V, since we had about 3.5, and now we're down to about 2.5, which was pretty good. You may notice, however, that this is a retrograde orbit that I'm putting it in. I didn't realize that until right about now, when I noticed that the escape was on this side, and I should have been looking at it this way. Simple solution for that, which I will discover in a minute, is if you burn radially, you can just basically go right through to the other side, and then you will be in a prograde orbit around the moon. So yeah, I do that. I don't actually care so much about the maneuver node, I just am using it for the direction, and flip around and get to about a 10 kilometer periapsis around pole. Still haven't used very much fuel. We still have 2.5 kilometers per second left, and assuming pole doesn't require 2.5 kilometers per second to get into orbit, then I think we will be fine. But now that we are in orbit and we've unlocked the simulation body, so I can now do simulations around pole, we need to do materials study and mystery goo, and oh, my computer is falling asleep. Cool. Okay, it's still good. Yeah, that was surprising. My screen just went black. Yeah, so mystery goo and materials are the only things we can do other than crew report and EVA report. And I can't actually transmit any of this because I don't have a dish that can reach Kerbin from here. So Ethan Kerman is going to go take all of the data out of these, store all of them, speed this up because I don't really need to watch it at normal speed. You've probably done this, so you know how this works. I'm actually going to store this in the lab because the lab can have multiples of the same thing, and crew capsules can't. You'll notice this is about 200 meters per second to get into a roughly 10 by 10 orbit around pole, so that's like nothing. And we do have Kethane drills and a Kethane conversion thing, and those are basically how we're going to do everything with only 3.5 kilometers per second. We're just going to land, refuel, take off, hopefully have enough fuel to get into orbit and land at the next place, and just keep doing that. The two places I'm most worried about are Lathe and the moon. The moon does not... I'm slightly worried that we will have to have like a large capture burn to get into orbit around the moon, especially because we're going from a higher orbit to a lower one. Moon is probably going to be after pole. So I might actually do Lathe before the moon, because going up from Lathe to the moon means we'll have a slower capture orbit, or capture burn. I haven't decided quite yet. I'm going to actually try them out, I think, and see what happens. But yeah, we do near pole science as well. We've already started mapping. I think this was Maxim Kerman this time. And there you go. We have done some Kethane mapping, and there is a nice deposit right there going into the sun, meaning we will have power for our solar panels. So we're going to try to land there and then do mining, and once again, like 100 meters per second to land, essentially. We're still going to have over 2 kilometers per second of delta V when we land. If we land. The ship just randomly blew up. Okay. Whatever. Let's not do this from map mode this time. So this is all, I think, sped up too. Yeah, this has got to be sped up. Just landing right kind of in the valley. It's not necessarily a crater, it's just a valley. Pole is very bumpy. It's kind of hard to find any good landing spots. You'll notice the monitor on the left is just staring at the top of the Kethane detector, because I didn't know that was there. Hang on a second, my phone just rang. Ah, okay. Not a serious issue. Also not sure if someone's home. But yes, we are about to land. And we're just 10 meters up. Very, very, very close. Gonna impact now. Contact, yes. 5.8 degree angle, not bad. And we do science, we go out, we get it. Ethan Kerman is going to do EVA reports and gather everything, and be the first Kerbal to ever set foot on pole. And you can see the engines here, and the engine here, and the Kethane miner. And there's the sun and the whole ship from the point of view of Ethan Kerman. Maxim Kerman is going to be getting out soon after I walk around and take a picture. Yeah, you can see the ladder system's kind of weird because I had to have this strange diagonal ladder in order to actually get them to connect, but oh well, it works. So yeah, it's 90 science for the surface sample, 24 for the EVA report. Let's get Maxim Kerman out. He's probably not going to take the ladder because the ladders are for squares. And he has decided he's going to try to land on top of Ethan Kerman's head. Which is quite easy to do on pole, because there's very little gravity. I think there actually was a challenge once that I saw where it was just stack the most Kerbals possible on each other on the moon. So yeah, we've taken surface samples, we've done EVA reports. The only thing left to do is plant a flag. So Ethan Kerman will have the honor of planting the first flag on pole, which, there it goes, majestically. The 8 Jool 4 stop 1 pole. Because we will be stopping at least 4 times. As the first Kerbal set foot on pole, I feel it's my duty to say something important. Instead, I said duty. Ha 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 ha. Ethan Kerman. Very, very nice, Ethan. I'm glad that the folks over at KSC cannot read that until they actually send up a base or something here. Actually, pole would be a pretty decent place for a base. So we're just flying around to the top of this ridge with Ethan, just to kind of see out over, and I time warped and everything went black. And now I'm very, very confused, because I was definitely in the air, and I apparently crashed into pole and was killed. Well, I suppose time to load the quick save, because that doesn't count. And the quick save is still in orbit. In fact, I don't think... No, we have done our deorbit burn, I believe, but we have not actually shifted up. And so I time warp up to get a little further and proceed to crash into nothing again. 500 meters up? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, there's nothing really in our way. We're good. And we are exploded again. And you're going to notice this just keeps randomly happening when I'm time warping anywhere near pole's surface. Yeah, this one I think is kind of interesting because half the ship somehow survives, only to then blow up again. So I'm like, whatever, okay, I'll take it slowly over that ridge. Maybe that ridge just has weird issues because that's where Ethan was when he died. We'll just land again. Everything will be alright. Cool. We landed. Good. I'm getting better at flying the ALCOR capsule now, because this capsule is kind of confusing because there's literally buttons everywhere. But that slope's a little annoying, so let's try to land somewhere a little nicer. This looks flatter. I am kind of cheating here because I'm not doing this in IVA, but this ship is also sometimes impossible to control. So yeah, that worked out fine. Let's just take all the data out of here. This time it's Maxim instead of Ethan, and I've lost control of him, and he's now shoved himself between two of the liquid fuel tanks and the primary one, and is not responding at all to any input. Pressing R doesn't work, pressing the WASD keys does nothing. Shift and Control does nothing. He is stuck here forever. That's annoying. Load the quick save. There we go. Maxim Kerman, you have finally figured out how to not get stuck in things and randomly die. And I believe I've actually, I've loaded I've quick saved now. So here we go. 8, Joolian 4, Site 1, Pole 1. Apparently Pole likes to randomly blow things up with any sort of time warp. Maxim Kerman, Ethan did the flag the first time. So that's actually marked down. Unfortunately, the last flag no longer exists. Yeah, that did say Pole 1. I'm probably going to land once more on Pole after I do a full mapping. But for now, that's basically it. We have successfully taken the Joolian 4 all-in-one and landed on Pole, got the science that has to offer, and we'll be taking that home after we do everything else. So thank you all for watching. I will see you all next time.